Good morning, guys. Okay, so today I'm picking up where I left off last week. We're doing another stream for Joe's commission for the Goliath Legion. So I had a couple of discussions with Joe after the stream. He'd kind of tuned in, well, I think he'd watched a fair bit of it, but he managed to tune in right at the very end. And he had a little bit of feedback in terms of like making them a little bit bigger. And what we were talking about was kind of having like these oversized arms and legs, like there's some kind of like limb extenders, some mechanical limb extenders and stuff inside the kind of the body of the suit. So yeah, basically the where we left off last week, I've kind of since then added this extra layer. So the forearms are now a fair bit chunkier. Still a little bit of extra armor layers and bulking and stuff to be added onto there. But we're getting into a good spot with it. So these are just like the forearms. Just obviously just a base. I'm just copying that and mirror it. Sorry, because I forgot to. There we go. Okay, so we've got the giant shoulder pads. We've got the helmet. Now there was some feedback on the helmet. Joe wanted it to be a little bit more like an American GI type helmet. So I just need to reprofile and reshape it a little bit. So I'll come back to do that first, actually. Let's take those away. Okay, so for this, basically what I would need to do is, let me just grab our chat up on the screen. So we're looking more of a GI type helmet. So basically it's a little bit more rounded at the top. I think potentially let's just take that away for a minute actually. I think part of the issue is also going to be this, the shape I've created. So this is a little bit too, so if we're talking GI style helmets, so American M1 is specifically what we're talking about. This is a bit less pronounced, so I just need to get that a little bit more straight, if you like. And then we're going to put a little bit more of a lip at the front, so. Now for the lip, what I'll do is I'll use a low intensity, high size, just like that. And what that will allow me to do is allow me to work from that point. work on refining the shape a little bit. And with 3D stuff, it's always the shadows and the highlights we're paying attention to. Because if we're getting irregular shadows being cast, or we're getting odd highlights, specular highlights popping up, then basically what we know is that we've got an issue with the surface. Weird stuff going on here where it's just flattening out at the back, so I'm going to have to just mask off this area here a bit, I think, just to make sure I can pull it without affecting it too much. I don't want to affect the kind of the main like dome shape, if you like. So, yeah, so apologies for the late start on the stream as well today. I should have said that first actually. Normally on at 10, so about an hour later than usual, but got Hayley working from home today. She's unfortunately not very well. We've also got Jacob in the same boat, also suffering. So trying to do my role as husband and father and just looking after everybody, making sure everyone's all right before I abandon them and leave them for the day to come down the office and stream to you guys. I will say I don't feel like I'm abandoning them. Obviously, I'm just at the end of the garden, so it's and they're not in critical condition or anything like that. Just sounds over dramatic, you know. Okay, so just polish this out now. Hopefully, that's a little bit more what Joe had in mind. Just need to thicken up the edge of the helmets here because that is too thin. On mine also just omit that outer ring because I get a feeling that if I leave it on, it's going to kind of change the feel of the helmet. I've still got to put the crest down the middle, but that's not a problem. Oh, and also just a quick early apology. It appears my next door neighbour is also having some work going on in the garden, so you may hear kind of drills and things going on in the background, completely out of my control. There's nothing I can do about it, unfortunately. Or something. Let's get a bit of polish going on. Let's try and get this outside edge kind of straightened out and leveled up. Oops, got the image from yesterday's thing up on screen as well, so let me just take that away. unfortunately, I can't really put Joe's concept up on screen because it's not really got a transparent background or anything like that. It's quite chunky, so it's going to take up most of my screen if I do. But it's fine. I'll show you periodically, and we'll just have a little recap and review the details. Now, because of the alterations and the tweaks and changes and stuff that have happened since the last stream, some of the design itself is kind of redundant now, if that makes sense. So when we're looking at the let's just bring that down a tiny bit, 'cause there is a little bit of a that is cool. However, those ears, I think that's the reason I ended up with the shape I ended up with, to be honest. The ears are kind of interfering a touch. I think what I might have to do is I'm just going to raise the helmet up just a teeny bit. Oops. Just to a point where we're not getting any clashing anymore. Unfortunately, that looks a little bit. Actually, if I tilt it forward, that's not too bad. That actually, yeah, that's pretty decent. I'll go with that. Let's roll with that one. So we're talking on-the-fly design decisions now. So we've got a sketch, but the client has now given me a few little deviations, kind of. I think the discussion we had was basically it was designed based on the rule of cool, so nothing wrong with that, except when we try and actually then make it as a physical product, we have to consider things like the range of movement. We have to consider armour kind of collisions with itself. We have to consider. Just trying to find the sketch again so we can work on what we're doing. We have to consider all these extra kind of factors that are just generally not part of the kind of the design the design considerations at the beginning. So if you're only going by rule of cool, that is the danger. So again, let me just show you the sketch that we're working to. So here's the design concept. Now, what we've done, so there's just a normal regular dude inside this costume. So he's not supposed to be contained within the body. It's not like a dreadnought type mech suit or anything like that. So if it was, I would leave. I'd make sure the body was big enough, the head would be small enough to make all of this kind of appear like a big robotic function. What we've got instead is this guy's body is in the body. His arms and legs will be in the legs, but they're going to be basically kind of say coming to like here, say. So they'll only come halfway down, and then the rest of the range of movement is going to be happening through well, with him, what we're going to do is the upper arms are going to come to cover his upper arms, and then at the elbow, he's got his natural elbow joint, and then basically his hands are going to come to about here, and then he'll be gripping onto some kind of mechanical grip and pulley type system thing that's going to control the hands beyond that. So yeah, basically it's going to be an extension from the forearm. Likewise with the legs, the upper leg will be fine, same as normal. Then we've got the knee, will be his natural knee joint, and then the lower legs. So the inside arm here is going to be the normal leg, and then the bottom here is like an enhanced extra thickness kind of section, which is going to extend his height. Basically, it's going to give him extra kind of mass. So he's going to be quite a bit taller than a conventional kind of guy. So you can see obviously the feet are coming to here normally. So his feet are inside this lower mass. And again, we can see his upper arms are armoured and covered. His elbows are exposed at the moment because I haven't done the underarm bits. So yeah, so just got to start kind of getting these layers built up. So on this bit here now, let's do the extra armour plate. And again, we're looking at a layer of armour that's going to sit on top. So I'm just going to do this as like an extraction. Actually, there's a cut out of the front, not at the back. Mask this off, extract it. I'm going to boost up the smoothness on the extraction. It's a little bit too thick, so let's just reduce the thickness down to like 1-3. There we go. So I want it like a nice chunky size. This does have an outside trim on it, so I think I differentiated last time round. There was going to be a difference between the internal armour and then external additional armour plates. Put some polish on here. So I'm just going to clean up the outside first. We've got a nice wobbly line on the top of this armour plate. That's going to look really rubbish, so let's just spend a bit of time just levelling that out and just smoothing it through. So I'm just using H polish on the outside edge, occasionally dipping into like the Alt key version of it, so it kind of builds up the mass rather than reducing it and flattening it down. And you'll see sometimes when I'm doing that, you'll get these like little pulls on the outside. You can see these like little artifacts going on. So where that happens, I'm just going to literally just Dynamesh with polish on in a bit, and that'll just sort that out. Where I want a sharp edge, like here, a crease, then obviously we're going to just polish right up to the edge and just bring it in from the other side as well, and that'll give us a nice sharp change in plane. There we go. So, okay, so now it's going to smooth and polish that. That's going to give me the desired effect. Okay, I did have symmetry on the whole time, so that is whatever I've done on the one side is applied to the other. Okay, now I'm just going to go back into here. I'm just going to put that's a bit low resolution actually. Let me just bump that resolution up a bit, or a lot. If you can't Dynamesh again, what you need to do is just need to do a little bit of smoothing somewhere on the surface where it's not going to be noticed, and then that will allow you to redo your. Or just press the divide button. Right, so that's giving me a smoother look now. I'm just going to come around the outside edge. And again, I want to make sure it's kind of similar kind of distance all the way around. Just trying to follow the outline. There's other ways you can do this. You can use call it a poly loop function. It applies a curve to the outside of a poly group, or you can just draw the curves, draw the tubes in yourself. It's like using clay tube or whatever. Not clay tube. This one, curve tube. But I always find those are a bloody nightmare. Don't like using them. Do occasionally, but in terms of just trying to put a trim on a piece of armour, unless I specifically need to like render up different materials and apply different materials to a different part of the armour, I always find it's easy to just do this. So for a miniature, this is 99% of the time your simplest and most efficient way of doing what I'm about to do. Okay, so I'm just going to inflate that now. Oh, no, sorry, switch it. Switch it and inflate. It's going to add some thickness. I'm going to polish it. And then I just need to sort this outside edge out again, because I should have flattened it really, but I'm going to use the trim dynamic and just carefully and lightly go around the outside, just to lower the levels down so they're about the same. And then once I've done that, I can use the H polish brush, come back in and give it a little trim up, straighten up. So I've taken too much off there, so I need to come out and undo that. Just got to be careful not to eat into the mesh too much, or the mass rather. If you hear me talking meshes, by the way, I'm just talking about the actual physical mass that I'm working on. From a technical point of view, it is literally imagine like chicken wire, like a big mesh of wire, except it's like the digital vertices. Oops. I always do that, instead of pressing the Alt key I end up pressing my Windows key. So again, just polishing this out, just getting a sharp edge to it all, unifying the whole thing again. I probably could have just done this once and just made sure the inside edge was fine and just tidied up the outside edge. It would save me a couple of minutes. There we go. So now we've got arm with a trim on it. I need to do the same for this piece. Let's split that off. Let's give this a quick save. Okay. So with this piece now I need to do the same as I did on the other one. So this this bit here was actually a little notch up in the top of the Unfortunately, I can't run for a long time today because I've got a few off-stream things I need to do, and because of Haley and Jacob not being very well, I've also got to duck off and actually go and pick Willow up from school. So I'm just going to do a little bit of work on this while I can. Tomorrow I should be online doing a bit of a sculpt for Mike Moans. He's got a lovely, like, glamorous female beholder, if you can imagine such a thing. So I'll have the artwork on screen for that and get that one made up. I don't think that'll take me too long actually. I think that'll be quite a quick sculpt. Tessellation off now. And clean these edges up again properly without the without bloody symmetry as well, apparently. That wire turn symmetry off. Let's get the trim on the outside now. I've got the shape right. Oh, hang on, the shape's not right yet. Shape refined, so just going to clean up the edges. Get that pointy. And then I'm going to just use the move tool to just bring that bottom point in. Just to there like that. And I'll use the dynamic trim, or trim dynamic as it's actually called. Just to shave off the edges. I don't want to go further in than the edge of the arm there. And all I want to do is I want to bring it to a point in the middle. So I'm just going to run a seam line down the middle using orb cracks. Okay, you can see that's I want this to be like a flat top on it. I guess that's roughly about the right shape. So I'm going to just pay attention to the edge line here. I want this to be a nice, consistent, smooth curve. If it becomes anything other than that, I've failed in my mission. And the top line here also needs to be nice and straight. And I want these surfaces to basically bevel out. So they want to round off to the outside. So it's like the tip of a pointy shoe or something. Yeah? And again, I can't use my symmetry line for the middle because it doesn't exist on this particular mesh. The symmetry line is like here, straight down the centre. So I'm just going to use a good eyeball to kind of like figure out if I'm doing it straight or not. Okay. Redoing my Dynamesh and polish. So I think I've got it fairly good for the bottom part. The top leaves a bit to be desired, but I'm going to use my slice tool. I'm just going to come across here now, line through with the top of this. This is like a downward pointing thing. We'll like that. Oops, let's just auto group that first. Come back and do that again. Just delete the tops off. Auto group. I want it to be a little bit higher. Okay, so I use trim dynamic and just clean the back up, bring it into there like that, and then I don't know if plane is the right way to go on this, but got a feeling maybe not, but H polish will do the job. We can just flatten it out with H polish, that'll be fine. Alright then, so now I've got the armour there. What I want to do is I want to just do what I did before with the other piece, where we're going to put the armour trim around. Okay, so this is just an outline trim. So I'm just going to make sure this is, again, just tracked around the outside of the mesh. I'm trying to keep it clean and straight as possible on the inside. The top I'm going to have to clean up because there'll be overspill. I know it. brace it on this one. We'll do this with it. Just take that bit out of there. Oh, you turd. Right, let's sort that a bit. So I've got a bit of an inequality from one side to the other. This is one of the perils of doing it by eyeball. Peel this back away from the inner edge a touch. I'm going to invert that now, I'm going to inflate it. About there, I think is fine. And we'll just redo the Dynamesh. Okay. Right, so I'm going to come and clean up the edges of this a touch. So on here, we're just going to run smoothing around, just to kind of, I want it rounded off on the top edge. In fact, I don't. That's a lie. It's supposed to be square, isn't it? Sharp edge on the top. The inside, I'm just going to run again the smoothing just to clean up that inside line. Don't want to overhang in there. just running the H polish brush just around the inside edge. All I'm trying to do is just clean up any kind of like weird deformation. Now that can be helped in the first instance by making sure you've divided your mesh a couple of times before you start masking. But I realised once I'd fully masked everything that my mesh was not great. Now it's just an opportunity to go around and just do a little tidy up manually. So I've done that there, I just got to do it on the inside bit here. So this part, I just want to feather it out. Here I just need to make sure this outside edge has got that crisp line on it as well. Just got that hard edge on it. So as well as tapering it towards the inside, just for a bit of smoothness. I'm going to get the outside sharp. I feel like these guys would make some nice like heavy bad guys for a Dishonored game. Put a seam up the outside. Over this side again. Oh, what happened there? so there was a weird random artifact floating around in space, and my brush collided with it, and it altered the course of the brush was taken. Let's mirror mold that. So we get the same on both sides. Okay, cool. Okay, so we need to get some rivets in up here. Don't need to do that. Okay, so let's put the seam there. We'll do the same on this one. Put some seams on it because it's the outside bit of armour. Let's get some rivets on, because this thing's all about the rivets. Reshape the knee because it should be square like the foot is now. I'd say square, squared off. Sharpness to that corner, just So start here now. One on the corner, one on the corner, two in the middle. If you're wondering here, by the way, I'm using the mesh insert dot brush, which kind of puts a sphere in, and it comes up with the size of the whatever you set the brush size to. So in this case, I've got it set to 5.7. That's not relative to anybody else because it's all to do with the size of the scene and whatever else. You just need to figure out what brush size you need to use. Okay, so that goes there, and then I could do and when you're dragging the dot out, if you want it to be uniform size, you set the brush size, you hold control as you draw out. So you start drawing first, and then hold control, and it'll snap to the size of the brush cursor. So that's there. Right, now on this leg armour, auto group, delete the hidden. The rivets on this sit underneath that trim. Oh no, there's none down about. And again, you could put some guides in, you could put some kind of like, you know, extraction band, or even just mask off an area. And then we're not going to go across the top here, we're just going to go right around the bottom edge. Go. So I can actually, yeah, let's mirror mold that, sorry. Right, and on these, the rivets are around this bit. And again, I'm underplaying the sheer number of rivets on this, just because by the time it's printed as a miniature, they're going to be virtually invisible if I do as many as are on the model. That's for the wrists here. Okay, let's put splitting the plate there. Okay, then these need rivets around again, so we'll do the rivets around the outside of the plate. Oops. Okay, so hey Rafu, how you doing? Hope you're keeping well today. So oops, let's just save this. So for the upper arms, just going to polish this out a little bit. I put a little bit of a thing on there, but it wasn't necessary. And what I'll do in a second, give this a proper kind of reinforcement it needs. So it's going to group, we're going to polish, we're going to bump that up to about 1400. How are you doing today, Rafu, anyway? You keeping well? You up to anything nice? Thank you very much. I did actually have somebody on YouTube pop up asking me if I could sculpt a dragon the other day. On yesterday's stream. Was it yesterday or Monday? I wonder if that might have been related. Someone called Timothy, I think. Fair enough. Yeah, I'm probably due some lunch at the moment, but I don't really want to break while I'm mid-flow kind of thing. So let's get the masking done for this bit. Ah, pig inspired. Interesting. There's got to be some of them around already. Somebody's got to have already done that. I don't think anything in the world of Space Marines is new, is it, these days? I find them so uninspiring now. Like the whole thing with Space Marines now. Like there's so much saturation of them. Anytime I go on Instagram or Facebook, any kind of channel I follow that's got like miniature content seems to be just showing off Space Marines. It's one of those things, you know, it's like if you're new to the hobby, I think, you know, that they've got a real draw, you know, there's something cool about them. But when you've been in the hobby like me for 35 years, 34 years, kind of become jaded. You get grumpy old man syndrome, do you know what I mean? You get sick of seeing the same thing over and over again. I mean, I'm not an old man, by the way. I feel like it sometimes, but let's extract that. That's not too thick, I can't even tell. No, that's fine. We'll go with that. we use them extractions. Oh, you ball bag. Extract, accept. There we go. Yeah, I bet even you've got to be jaded with it now. Because it's like, it used to be, like I say, back in the day, you had very generic stuff. And then there was like a little bit of customization, and like when you saw people customizing a chapter, it was like, oh cool, that's something different. And you know, we only had a few kind of primary chapters, I suppose, and pretty much everything for all of them was generic, apart from with Space Wolves, where they were all very unique. And they did like the Deathwing, and I remember Grey Knights. I remember seeing Grey Knights thinking these are badass, you know, they're totally different. And the when they did Inquisitor, we had the Death Watch appear, and they released Brother Captain Artemis as a 54mm scale model, which is massive. It was epic. And then everybody wanted the Death Watch and things. In fact, actually, the most awesome set I saw that really appealed to me when I was younger was the what they call Legion of the Damned, the flaming armor and stuff like that. They were always had a real big appeal. But Inquisitor was a great game. It's just nobody wanted to play it in 54mm scale. The models were just, they were lovely as kind of collector pieces and things, but they were just so impractical as gaming models. Just because you needed so much terrain to play. I don't know if you ever played Inquisitor or not, but you needed so much terrain to play it that but it was 54mm, and 54mm was the killer, really. I think there's a mod of Inquisitor called Inquisimunda, which is like a fan-based homebrew thing, and obviously they take Necromunda and mash it up with the Inquisitor rules, so you get like Inquisitor warbands and retinues and stuff in a Necromunda kind of scale game. And that's what Inquisitor really should have been, I think. That's what would have made it a success commercially. So I think their choice of scale was the downfall, really. Like you say, nobody had the proper terrain. They released like 1 or 2 terrain pieces for it, didn't they? And they were like, oh yeah, you know, this is what you can use for Inquisitor. But it was like, that's great, but nobody's really going to bother, because everybody already had all the, you know, the 28mm scale stuff. Why are they going to go out and start, you know, making or buying a load of stuff in 54mm just to play this? And the reality was that they weren't. But 'tis a shame, 'tis a shame. So there was a lot to love about it, actually, but just a few like critical mistakes. What we're doing now? Okay, so we've got it all. Oh, these panels, they need rivets. Oh, the big Inquisitor guy with the massive heavy power armor. He was pretty cool. It was. Gunslinger and the Demon Host. Yeah, I had the God, I had quite a few. I had Cal Jericho in 54mm. He was an awesome model. I had the Elder Ranger. Cause I just love that. That's one of my favourite Elder models they've ever made. But I had that one. I don't think I had the Gunslinger. I had the female Demon Hunter, who came out towards the end of the range's kind of existence. Eisenhorn. I can't remember what else. I had about 4 or 5 others, I think. Oh, Savina and Savora, the Death Cult assassins. And the only one I never had, which I always regretted. I always regretted not getting him, was the Jedi type guy. Can't even remember his name now. He was one of the Inquisitors with like the pony. He had the ponytail and he had the shoulder cannon that was a bit like Predators. But he was basically a Jedi, weren't he? We all knew it. Right, what's next? Leather belt, which I'll just leave there for now. Yeah, it's always a problem. You don't want to, when you've got models like that that are so characterful, you can only really have the one in any given like game, really, can't you? I mean, I still bought the models because I liked them, but like I say, nobody I knew who was playing the game was playing with those models anyway. They were all doing it with the Inquisitor things. But one of my favourite parts of the hobby had always been converting. I used to convert everything. Converting is how I got into sculpting, but like converting models was like my real kind of draw in the hobby. That was what I loved about it. Alright, so I just realised something out. Yeah, so this whole the whole kind of potential to go off and do, you know, war bands that were of your own devising using the Inquisitor kind of rosters and stuff like that. It was just a fantastic opportunity to do some proper, you know, proper converting work and some real kind of top-notch modelling. You just didn't get with a lot of the armies, you know. You could take bits from different kits was the other great thing, and use like exotic weapons, and you could have a Space Marine running around with an Elder shuriken cannon and things, and you could justify it all with your storylines and your little backgrounds and things. When I kind of feel if you want those kind of things now, you've got it with things like Stargrave. You know, they've given you that little bit of extra potential to be able to kind of just do a bit of hobbying. Yeah, I was talking about it on stream the other day actually, and one of the things that I always loved about the Inquisitor rules was, like, I can't remember if they started or they ended with it, but basically somewhere along the line it literally just says everything you're about to read is just a guide. You know, the main thing is that you're having fun, so don't get hung up on the rules. And it was really nice to see that in like an actual rule book, almost as a formal rule in itself. Do you know what I mean? It was like, you know, Wheaton's Law, isn't it? But in writing from Games Workshop. I think at the time it was something just really different for them, wasn't it? But it was a welcome change, I think, from like the other stuff that was around. But I always loved the like, actually, I know everyone raves about D&D, but Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, and that was my one growing up. But part of it was from the accessibility of it. You know, we already had like Warhammer armies and all the stuff we needed to kind of to access that like world. And it was something as war gamers that we were already familiar with, so that was nice in that respect. But it's a good system as well. Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, it's a good game system. Let me just get a save on here. Right, I'm going to take the chest plate here. I'm going to merge it into all the other bits that are part of the chest plate. Which is not that piece. Merge that. That does not merge. They do. And that does. That doesn't merge. So that should be. It's not. Ah, there. Let's get that. Okay, so I need to just take all of this now. So scale the chest up a fair bit. There we go. Right, I can take the waist here now. It is, yeah. I mean, anybody going into kind of D&D, it's... I've seen a lot of conflicting information about it, which I don't entirely agree with. So there was one guy who caused a bit of a fuss, and he was going on about D&D, like 5e. Basically, his hang-up was that D&D 5e is not D&D. So like an addition of a game should be backwards compatible with the previous edition. And D&D 5e is so far removed from the original D&D that it no longer is D&D. And I get what he's saying, but I don't care about that. That's not important to me. That's the rules. For me, when I'm thinking about D&D, it's the worlds that they create. It's the monsters that inhabit them, the races that are there. That is the essence of D&D. It's not the rules that you play by, because the rules are transient's not the right word. What's the word? The rules are just a means of delivering a story, aren't they? The rules are not important. They are a means to an end. And I know a lot of people homebrew with, like, you know, the worlds and things like that, but it's still rooted in this kind of the fantasy genre that is created. And yeah, you know, nostalgia is a great thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean everything you think of from a nostalgia point of view is good. I mean, I had very fond memories of Visionaries, the cartoon, from when I was a kid, and years later, like, you know, 10, 12 years ago, I bought the DVD. It might have been longer than that. I bought the DVD when it got re-released, and it was like, you know, it was 20 years on, and frankly, it was unwatchable. It was such utter crap. Animation was bad, the storylines were terrible, the acting was awful, and I think it just doesn't stand up. Now, things like Transformers the movie, the original one from 1986, I had fears that was going to be the same, and I rewatched that years ago as well, and I actually rewatched it a week ago with my son. I kind of introduced him to it, and even now, you know, that was 1986. It's almost as old as me, so, you know, it's almost 40 years old, and it's as good as or better than most, like, you know, most cartoon series on TV now. So, you know, the animation quality stands the test of time because it's just that good. But it's not the case for most children's TV shows, unfortunately. But what's that you're saying? 5e is just as much D&D as 1e is just new and more modern edition. Just like the first D&D movie, the newest D&D movie. They were, but the original D&D movies were abominable, weren't they? If you're honest, it's like everything about them was just bad. They're just like cheesy, and there's all these like knockoff type D&D type movies around as well, and they were all about as good as the original awful one. Really. So, like, just everything about the old versions of the D&D films was just shocking. But let's see what the wife's sending me. She's asking me a question. Bear with me, guys. So Hayley's doing some she's doing some product renders and some not product renders, some Facebook and Instagram posts for us. So she's just scheduling up some marketing posts, and she's struggling with one of the models we've got. I think it might be called Light Infantry Ogre that she's looking for. Oh, it is in the render composites folder. Oh yeah, Arafu, totally, yeah. Yeah, the fact is that it still exists, whether you like it or not. It's still based on the same thing. It's still set in the same world. You know, the quality is neither here nor there in that respect. But yeah, I mean, going back to this idea that D&D isn't D&D anymore. I don't buy it, and it's not important to me. What's important is, like you say, it's when people come into this. You know, you think about like a fantasy setting and things like that, and you get drawn into D&D because it's so accessible. It's like Games Workshop always used to be the only. They weren't the only one, but they were the only one that most people were aware of. Sabrina, thank you for the like on Facebook. Hope you're doing well. So yes, the whole issue was anybody getting into miniatures, 10 years ago even, would probably have found Games Workshop as like the entry route into the hobby. It's not the case now, because a lot of people found 3D printers through COVID and lockdowns and stuff, and people have kind of discovered miniatures off the back of, oh hey, I've got this cool 3D printer, isn't it great? It's like magic, it can just make stuff out of thin air. But now I need something to make that's cool and small enough that I can put it on this print bed that's not very big. What can I do? And then they go off searching and they find all like the miniatures. So we've had a lot of people kind of their entry route into miniatures has been 3D printing, and again, a lot of those guys have played D&D with paper and not even entertained the idea of using miniatures, and then kind of come about it. So it's how things have started to change. But D&D currently is in that same accessibility like window, if you like, that the Games Workshop have occupied for miniatures. So when you started looking at like fantasy games and kind of role playing and all that kind of stuff, D&D is the one that you kind of get drawn into because it's there and it's at the forefront. And it also keys into things like Magic the Gathering, which obviously has got a big following. A lot of people play that. Same parent company and everything else, and they've got the kind of the crossovers on the cards and things. So there's a lot of reasons that people will get into D&D. It's not necessarily that D&D is the best or the most interesting or anything like that. It's just that it's just there. You've got Pathfinder, you've got Cursed Empire, all these other kind of like systems that sit around it, and they're all there to be kind of like picked up and played. But you do need to like dip your toe in water at like somewhere to start with, and like I say, it's always going to be the bigger, more mainstream ones that people will go to. So what you say now? You're a massive Star Wars fan, and I'll tell you, there's tons of things in Star Wars I don't like. It's not any less Star Wars though, it's just not my favourite part of it. So instead of watching the newer movies on Disney Plus and complaining about it being bad, I enjoy the content I'm able to enjoy. Yeah, totally agree with you. I am, at risk of sounding like a charlatan here, but I am actually in the opposite boat to you. When I was talking about it on stream the other day, to a bit of an uproar really, but I say uproar, it wasn't that bad. I grew up with things like Conan and Willow and like the fantasy things. I was really into my fantasy stuff as a kid, and obviously, you know, painting miniatures from 5 years old, I was kind of engrossed in that kind of the fantasy element. And my dad always used to love things like Star Trek, and Stargate and things like that. So he used to watch like various bits of sci-fi, but he wasn't really into Star Wars. Sorry. So because he wasn't into Star Wars, I never really had much exposure to the early films. So by the time I was old enough to start kind of getting into it, and I suppose it was really when the second wave of movies came out, like starting with the Phantom Menace, I kind of became more interested and more introduced to Star Wars at that point. So going back then to start, you know, I had seen the previous ones, but a long time ago. But I didn't have that nostalgia factor that we were talking about to kind of make me fondly remember those original 3 movies. And when I did like go back to watch them, and they're from like the 70s and 80s and whatever, they haven't aged very well in terms of their watchability. So the acting's bad, the animation's like not great, the stop motion stuff is just poor in a lot of cases, and a lot of the special effects don't really stack up to kind of modern expectations. So without the nostalgia to kind of draw down on, I found them really hard to kind of like get into and enjoy. I've watched them, I'm familiar with them and everything else, but they kind of key into the rest of the kind of the Star Wars kind of what do you call it, like ecosystem of movies and series and stuff now. Hey Dennis, how's it going, matey? We're just talking Star Wars again. But yeah, so like like for me, I mean, I'm enjoying The Mandalorian. What do you call it? The newer films like the Rogue One and stuff like that are great. Thanks, matey. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, that's it. And I mean, my favourite kind of delving into the Star Wars franchise is actually the Force Unleashed games. The Star Wars Force Unleashed, where you play your trainee, what do we call it? Your trainee Jedi, and whether you go for the dark side or not, and you have to go and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. That was just absolutely fantastic, and it was a lot darker than. Hey Dreadnought, how you doing, mate? Are you happy with the proportions on him now, guys? Dreadnought here in the chat now. He's the client in this one. Yeah, see, I never watched them until like the late 90s, and like I say, by that point they'd aged badly and they didn't kind of appeal to me then, so it was a bit. Hey Bunker, oh you too, mate. Yeah, Haley and Jacob aren't well at the moment, sadly, unfortunately. Both COVIDed up to the eyeballs, so yeah, it's going to wipe the whole family out. And I was supposed to be popping over to see Mr. Fohammer tonight and picking up a 3D printer from him, but that ain't going to happen now. It's a bummer, but there you go. Main story moves are where they lost me. I know what you mean. I'll be honest. I could actually kind of just leave the whole like 6 core movies and just push them to one side and just enjoy the rest of it. To be honest, I far prefer the TV series. And I don't know whether it's bad to say, but if I was watching the actual Star Wars movies, I would rather watch the Droid Tales reenactment of them. So it was, you know, I just find that I like the entertainment factor of it and the way they've told the stories, and you know, it's all good anyway. And it's Lego as well, so yeah, that's it. Goliath with Janet Jackson shoulder pads. yeah, Joe, just wanted to check in then. So, are you happy with like the scale of him, the proportions, and everything else? So I've done what we said. We've kind of enlarged the forearms, extended them out so they're bigger and longer. Hands are larger. Got to get his feet on there, obviously. So the feet got to be big and chunky. So I'm just starting on this process now of kind of refining the armour and stuff like that. And hello to you too, Rosie. Hey, great work on your warlock painting, by the way, mate. Looking lovely. Okay, so we've got it coming from here. Yeah, I mean, honestly, mate, if we were going for like a Final Fantasy style Magitech armor kind of thing, I think the original design works great. But the fact you wanted to kind of have this as a guy in a suit, we just had to kind of like just shrink him down just a little bit, just moderate him a touch. But I think once he's got his backpack on, we've got his feet on there, he's going to still look like a hefty unit. Do you know what I mean? He's still going to have that massive chunk we were after. Oh, photo frame, I like it. Sounds very cool. Here is a very, very quick pouch. So start with a cube, just round off the bottom side so we get that little bit of shape going on. Smooth the middle. I said Final Fantasy themes, did I? What was that about? When did I say Final Fantasy theme? What was I talking about? I'm losing my train of thought here. I know we talked about it yesterday. I'm not sure if I'm not sure what I was talking about today. Let's just mask this a touch on the corners. Go and pull that out a touch. I'll go and add some stitching to the centre. You feeling rough too, Rosie? so then we go to the side. I'm just going to carve the... Oh, we need the intensity up. You've been in the wars then, Rosie? I don't know what they're doing next door, but they're making a right bloody noise with like the banging and clanking. I'll tell you, I'm desperate to see this, you know. So, oh god, I know I've spoken about this a couple of times now, but I just don't understand how they're going to pull it off. So, let me just demonstrate to you where my concern is here, right? So here's the concept we're working to just before I go off on a tangent now. So we've got a nice big Falcon bolt rifle to make. Some nice wooden parts, a bit of steampunkiness to it all. The Fat Boy heavy revolver, which feels very much like something out of like Destiny or actually no, forget Destiny. This is like one of the big fat hand cannons out of Borderlands. We've got the combat knife and these flower grenades, which I actually really love. I love these flower grenades. I love the idea of them. They're just great. You just got to remember to let go of them, haven't you? You're swinging around. You've got to swing it to throw it, a bit like a hammer throw, I imagine. That's where I'm kind of thinking the point of these things is. So, so obviously if you just clobber somebody with it, you're going to come cropper. So, my point. So, go to my Kickstarter page. Got 2 days left on this. So we're almost at 3,500, 199 backers, which is great. Loving this. I haven't put the post up, by the way, but I am going to be doing a nudie version of her. If we hit the 4,000 mark. So if we get to 4 grand by the end of tomorrow, well, we've got 45 hours to go. So if at the end of 45 hours we've got 4,000, there'll be a nudie version of her coming out. Which I don't really want to do because I think it's all a little bit tacky. Oh, thanks, Bunker. I think it's all a little bit tacky and everything, but I've had quite a few people asking for it, and I do think it's going to. I think once she gets her baps out, it's going to kind of, you know, bring in the customers a bit. So yeah, it's going to have to happen. It's not my thing usually, but you know. If the punters want it, I need to give it to them, really, don't I? But the marketing company who have contacted me about this right at the beginning, when I first launched it, and I kind of said yes to them. I kind of said yes reluctantly, being very doubtful that they would, you know, they'd be able to achieve what they set out for. And I sent them a message the other day saying, look, you know, guys, I've got 3 days left on this campaign. I expressed concern with 17 days left that nothing had happened, and they assured me everything was fine. We were on track for 80 grand was what they reckon we were going to get. So bear in mind we're at 3,000 now. So they basically turn around and say, we're looking at 80 grand, looking at getting you 80 grand on this. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, I don't think that's viable. I don't think that's actually going to happen. So just as a quick calculation, so if I got 80,000 and we are looking at say an average of £16 a head by the time we've added stretch goals. I need 5,000 backers on here to get to the £80,000 mark that they think they can do. And I've basically sent them a message saying, look, you know, guys, you've got 3 days left. I initially expressed concern at 17 days to go, and nothing's happened since. And now I'm expressing even more concern that you know, I need you to tell me you're on track to get this goal met, basically, with 3 days to go. And I've literally just had a message pop up on my thing saying, yes, we're on schedule. It's like, that's great, but please show me something. Please, you know, don't just tell me you're doing it. Prove it to me and demonstrate it, because I'm, you know, on the edge of my seat here. Yeah, they reckon they can do 30 grand was the original threshold. And again, even for 30,000, we need, how many backers is that? Nearly 2,000 backers. 1,875 backers to meet 30,000, and 5,000 backers to get 80 grand. So I don't think it's going to happen. yeah, that's it. I blame them for the lack of hair. It's their fault. So, but yeah, it is making me a little bit edgy. Because frankly, what I could do with between 30 and 80 grand is you're starting to get in the realms of you know, hiring extra sculptors, having concept artists on board, you know, all that kind of stuff. And it's a big step up from where I am at the moment, and I'd really love to do it. So yeah, they need to really make it happen now. Now that they've said they can do it, I want them to follow through. Because I told him outright I was sceptical and I didn't think they could do it, but they're insisting they can. So I'm going to give them a chance to prove me wrong, and I really want them to do it. So. But I've never seen a Kickstarter like that do, you know, more than what 5 or 6 grand. So yeah, while I'd love to see it, I'm wildly sceptical that it's ever going to happen. But if these guys prove me wrong, I'll be pimping them to everybody to kind of. Cheers, Rosie. I'll be singing their praises everywhere and recommending them to everybody. So I want to be one of these success stories they use for marketing on their you know, on their ads and stuff. But I say the write-ups on them and the reviews and stuff, they didn't seem like scam artists or anything. Do you know what I mean? So. Although I'm nervous about not seeing the results yet, there's still, you know, a chance for a little bit of optimism, because we're not at the end yet. We've still got those 45 critical hours. But in a bit, I am going to be knocking this on the head, because I do need to go and do some Facebook marketing and pimping of my own to kind of start sharing it off and sharing it around and showing it off, and try and draw that last little bit of a footfall through the door for that last, you know, those last 45 hours, get the people on board. Joe, I also wanted to know from you, if you're still around, dude, ping me a message on the DM and let me know. But with this guy, because I'm doing him on stream, I'm guessing people will be keen to kind of know if they can get a hold of him anywhere. So if you've got an outlet anywhere, or you've got any kind of like way that people can buy this model from you, if you want to just let me know, and I'll be able to kind of field off any questions about it then, and I'll update the video links on YouTube and stuff, so people have got the means to, you know, get to you for buying them. And if you're not around, I'll send you that as a message afterwards anyway, so you'll get the message one way or another. Cheers, matey. I appreciate it. Appreciate all the sharing. And the awesome paint jobs you're working on as well, mate. I'm still amazed that you're more colourblind than I am, and I know it's a struggle. So to see like you coming out with the stuff you're doing is fantastic. Doesn't matter what you use, does it? As long as you're sharing it, and the people you're sharing it to want to see it. I mean, if you fancy doing a Reddit post, I don't even know what the rules are about Reddit anymore, but I know I can't post on it. Is the only problem. It's kind of out of bounds for me as a marketing tool. You need creators to or makers to do it, don't you? People who are hobbyists on the whole thing. So yeah, if anybody is using Reddit and fancies going and pimping my wares on Reddit and shouting about it a little bit. Oh, you're using unfamiliar colours? Yeah, I bet that's a challenge. Guys, for anyone who doesn't know what's going on here in the chat, so I am colourblind, and I've kind of learned to deal with it over the years and found ways around the various different, you know, things I've had issues with. When I met Rosie at ChillCon recently, basically he used to be able to see colour, and then basically now no longer can. So he's literally seeing everything in black and white and using names of paints, I think, to kind of actually do it. Which, when you actually kind of, you know, you see his work, it gives you a real appreciation for the fact that he's like, you know, he's doing this all from like colour values. Because I mean, it's what I do is like most of the time I kind of know what the colours are, but I'm working an awful lot using like the colour values. So if you were to turn it into a black and white image, the various different shades of grey is what I'm kind of like looking at in terms of how I build things up. Sometimes I end up second guessing myself, but most of the time I'm fairly confident with what I'm doing. But I can see the colour, I just can't differentiate it very well. Whereas Rosie is in the opposite boat, he's in the opposite end of the spectrum to me, where he can't see the colour. He has no concept of that. Well, he has concept of it, sorry, he doesn't have the visibility of it in any form at all. And I find it amazing. So kudos to you, dude, for being able to kind of like crack on and still paint minis and still do all this kind of like, you know, hobby and awesomeness without actually being able to kind of physically see the colour. Right, so we've got this far. He's looking a badass, isn't he? Joe, I have to say, mate, this design is growing and growing and growing on me, man. realised the helmet at the front is the wrong shape. Let me just reshape that. And I need to do the crest on the middle of this. Let's just give this a good Dynamation polish, some decent resolution. Polish up the edges of this. Oh, no worries. You take it easy, mate. Nothing worse than running out of data when you need it for other stuff. Catch up with you later, Rosie. Joe, how's the helmet looking for you? Is that a little bit better? Ah, didn't need those last two. What the bloody hell happened there? Oh, LSIM's on. Mirror. There we go. Okay, so next bit will be, I'm going to put like a little divider in there. So I'm going to split that in half, I think. Push that back just a touch. Do you know what, that is actually more round than that. There we go. Profile this nicely. Oops, do it without doing that. let's manage that. Let's just cut this through here. Right then, there we go. Okay guys, so most of the armour is now done. I've got the weapons to work on next. I've got a few like pistony parts to do in the groin, but I'm not gonna spend too much time on them, I don't think, at the moment, just because basically I'm gonna have to enlarge all of the thigh armour and everything to make that happen. That might do the job. Might work. Okay. Spartan game released a game called Halo Grand. Oh yeah, yeah. I remember some Halo miniatures. I don't remember necessarily the game, if that makes sense. Well, are you working on it or something? Are you getting to do all those? Yes, I remember those guys because I remember Fohammer. He did a thing about it, and they were like 6mm scale or something like that, and he'd scaled them up to 28mm, and they actually scaled pretty decently, to be fair. I have to say though, lately I've got no faith in copyright holders to follow through and do the right thing. So I've seen an awful lot of just absolute blatant plagiarism, basically, just getting through the net without even any kind of attempt to mask it or kind of rebrand it or redesign anything. You know what I mean? They're just like literally just taking legit designs and just going with it. Guys, I'm just going to mute a second while I brew a coffee, okay guys, because it's going to be quite loud. Give me a second. Sorry guys, I forgot to stick on mute. I started talking again and I've forgotten to mute it, unmute it. Oh, this is weird now because my coffee machine's been I've been running in like orange mode for ages now, which is like basically when it needs like descaling, and I descaled it the other day. It's the first time I've run the coffee machines. It's the thing. It's the first time in ages I've seen steam coming out of my coffee. It's like it just tones. If it's not descaled, it tones down the temperature a little bit, I think. So let's get these feet enlarged, make them the right size, so you can stabilise the. So you're thinking, Dennis, you're going to go do some compatibility type things with the Spartan game? That's kind of in your ballpark, isn't it? The sci-fi vehicles and all that kind of business. Well, I don't actually know what the story is behind the Halo game. Did somebody just start developing it and then either lose interest in it, or did they lose the license, or? I've got a feeling from memory, wasn't it something like the license expired or something like that, so they weren't allowed to legitimately sell them. Kind of dud deal. Oh right, so it was literally the company folded then. Hang on, was Spartan Games the ones who used to do the I forget what it's called now, like the Greek naval warfare type game? Zyston or something, was it? Yeah, I can imagine it. And to be honest as well, going after a big IP like Halo, if you're not in a good position to handle it, is literally just going to destroy your business as well. I think a lot of people think that, like, you know, a big IP is the path to success, and to a point they're right, but you've got to be able to deliver it well. Dystopian Wars, that was the one. I knew there was something on boats. Yeah, you've definitely got to be able to kind of deal with the you because you can't have a big IP like that and then let anyone down. Do you know what I mean? You've got to make sure that you deliver on it. I think what we keep seeing though is a lot of people are getting these IPs. They're just chasing them and just trying to, like, you know, launch a business off the back of them and whatever. And they're not necessarily focusing on making the games playable. You know, the game is like secondary to them, which I don't agree with. Well, yeah, this is what I mean. You've got to be in a position to kind of handle it, because you're going to get something like that. You're going to be inundated with orders. I mean, if I took on an IP like that right now and launched it in my current state with the resources I've got available to me now, I'd be crumbling, and I wouldn't have time to kind of backfill my production enough. To kind of get staff on board and train them how to do what I need them to do. Not under that level of pressure, and it's kind of a vicious cycle, because you would think, yeah, totally would have done. But you would think that getting an IP like Halo would be, you know, a means to an end for you to kind of grow your business and kind of make the business bigger and deal with it. But I can't even remember what the bloody company's called now. What were the guys, the Polish guys who did Alien vs Predator and completely screwed it all up? Remember them? What were they called? But they're a prime example. They basically set a precedent where they kind of said, you know, we'd take on Alien vs Predator as an IP, release the game, and it went massive. And then they realised that they needed to scale the business up to kind of deal with it. Proteus, yes mate, thank you. So they realised they needed to upscale the business to kind of make sure they could deal with this this increased demand. And essentially they ended up funneling all the money from their Kickstarter for Alien vs Predator into growth in the business and whatever. And was it like 4 years or something like that of running other Kickstarters to try and like retrospectively fund production for the Alien vs Predator fulfillment? And their reputation got dragged through the mud doing that. They did not, I don't even know if they're about anymore, but they did not end in a good place. God, a coffee tastes 10 times better now that it's actually brewed on a hot machine. Yeah, this is the thing. Yeah, they put a lot of time and effort into. I mean, they actually were the ones who originally developed Siocast. So I know, like, obviously the Spanish company Siocast, they've coined it now and whatever else. But I mean, ages ago, Proteus, they were kind of going out there showcasing these models that they'd done in plastic that had undercuts like no other plastic model we'd ever seen before. Oh, they are still about now then. But yeah, like I say, their primary thing was they were they were doing Sirecast stuff. Except if I remember right, I think they were 3D printing the molds. I think it works slightly differently. They were 3D printing the molds to be injection molded rather than steel tooling them. So there was a slight difference to it. Ah, right. See, this is me with my finger off the pulse. This is Dennis. He's showing me up now, being out of touch. No, I do need to pay more attention to what's going on in the industry, to be honest. But it's hard when you're running a business yourself, as I'm sure you're well aware, that you end up, you know, completely like single-mindedly focused on your own things, making sure everything's right for what you're doing yourself, which is what you've got to do, really. Do you know what I mean? You have to do that, but equally, you're the opposite of me, then, mate. I don't have time to do any of that kind of stuff, unfortunately. I rely on you lot to tell me. Do you know what? Come and have the chinwag in the. In fact, should we set up an industry gossip section of the Discord channel, so like people can like come in and like drop some gossip if you've got any. Well, that might be handy, wouldn't it? Set up some different threads and things on there. In fact, Bunker, have I got you as admin on? Are you a guild warden on the server? Check in. Can't even find Bunker on here. Where are you at, mate? Oh, are you offline? Is that, yeah, you're offline. Let's create a text channel called Industry Gossip. There we go, we've got a new one. There we go. So we've got a little industry gossip section. If you want to post anything in there and share it, then absolutely go for it, man. Oh, I've heard a lot about Drop Fleet Commander and Hawk War games. Can't remember what I heard now. I remember it being a subject of much gossip at the UK Games Expo a couple of years ago. Cheers, Dennis. Yeah, it's definitely one of those things, isn't it, where there's a lot of stuff going on in the industry. There's so many companies active now. It's difficult to kind of keep tabs on everybody. But I know when I did the oh, you're not in there, Dennis? Sorry, mate. I didn't even realise you weren't in the Discord. But yeah, I know it's there's like some weird stuff, isn't there? Like, I remember I did a test sculpt for Doctor Who with what are they called? Warlord Games, and I bailed on it in the end. I couldn't have carried on. It was like nonsense, really. I mean, I sculpted the model as a miniature because it's a miniature, 28mm scale as well. So you can't go too realistic at 28mm. And I don't even like Doctor Who. I think it's appalling. I think it's an abomination of a TV show. It's like when you think how big a following it's got, like worldwide, globally, and then the effort that they fail to put in on like props and costumes and stuff. It's just shocking. It really is. Good for you, Dennis. You aren't missing out, mate. I watch a lot of like Netflix type things. I've just been watching Carnival Row. I'm on the last episode of that. So that's I'm enjoying that. Really enjoying that. Today, the one I did for Warlord, it was a cyborg gunslinger called Carla Tech, and the character design himself is not too bad, I would say, but the costumes, I mean, they sent me over the BBC like photo resources for it, so I had a folder with probably like 1,000 photographs of this character. All of the parts of its like accessories and props and stuff were on there, and I sculpted it and I stylised it as a 28mm wargame model. And you know, for my money, it was a good model. It was a good miniature. And when I sent it on to him, the feedback I got was, "It looks too much like a miniature. Can you make it more realistic?" And I was like, no. Like, ultimately, you know, yes, it's a Warlord Games product, but if I'm the sculptor, my name's going to be all over this, and I wasn't willing to put my name to it. Do you know what I mean? At that point where it got, they want to remove the stylization and make it as true to life as possible. It just takes that. What do you call it? It removes it. It basically goes against all my kind of principles for miniature making, and I don't like it. So yeah, so I said to him, like, I can't carry on and do it then, unfortunately. Saying there. Oh yeah. Every channel is nonsense. The amount of like lowbrow TV these days is ridiculous. I mean, what was that latest one? So me and the wife, we watched one called Naked and Afraid, which is quite a good show. And it's like a survival show where you get these people who are survival experts, and they take a man and a woman who've never met each other before, who have both got some kind of like survivalist background. They send them off into jungles of Panama, or you know, some desert somewhere, or whatever kind of environment they send them to, you know, Arctic tundra or something, and they're completely naked, unless they manage to make themselves some clothes from, you know, twigs and grass or whatever. But for the most part, they're completely naked. They're running around. They have to survive out there for 21 days. And most of the time, you're watching it, and it's people who believe they're competent survivalists, struggling to start a fire and find food, and basically slowly starving to death over the course of 21 days until one of them gets medically evacuated because they've, you know, cut their foot and it's gone gangrenous or something. You know, it's one of these kind of things. Sometimes they're a bit more successful, but generally it's quite an entertaining show. But all of the naughty bits are blurred, so there's no, you know, you're not watching people running around naked really. So it's all about like the survivalism and all that kind of stuff. And then they've got this new one that's popped up on like E4. Anything E4 does is just garbage, isn't it? But E4 pops up with this God, what's it called now? Naked, Alone and Far From Home or something like that. And it feels like they've tried to take the essence of Naked and Afraid, remove all the kind of the blurring and censorship and stuff, and do it in the UK where people are like running around your own neighbourhood in the noddy. And it's on the same bar as Naked Attraction and that kind of level of crap telly, do you know what I mean? It's like it's stuff to avoid and stay away from. But back on track, leave the tangent, let's see what else I was saying. So, yeah, it looks too much like a miniature, but it is a miniature, exactly, yeah. And you never want to kind of bend your principles and do something you're not comfortable doing or that you know to be wrong. My wife's downstairs watching TV and I'm upstairs watching Twitch and 3D modelling. Yeah, definitely the right way of doing it. For years, I used to do all my sculpting on the sofa. Hayley used to complain if I was in a different room, so she didn't want to be she didn't want to be kind of on her own in the house, if you like, with me kind of like just, you know, 20 foot away from her in a different room doing my own thing. So I got my Wacom tablet, and I did all of my sculpting sat on the sofa next to her. So we managed to get on quite well with that kind of thing. Actually, it worked out well. Let's just let's put some. Oh no, that's the wrong piece. Let's do some detailing here. Let's do some. Yep, civilized porn. That sounds like about a good description. Except it's not even civilized, is it? It's just crass, really. Oh, so I quite enjoyed The Big Bang Theory. They've got some quite good dynamics going on, and a lot of the jokes and stuff that happen in that, they're quite what do you call it? They're like the more kind of like educated type jokes. You know what I mean? Like there's a bit more intelligence behind them. Not always. You know, Howard making a giant robotic hand to pleasure himself with, for example, that was just funny. But it's not what do you call it? It's not something you can kind of watch all the time. It like loses its. It's nice having that little bit of like nerd culture kind of like, you know, highlighted and showcased a little bit, and you know, giving light to like the whole Comic-Con type thing, and like you say, they're doing it in a kind of a mocking, kind of satirical way, I suppose, but it's still kind of like highlighting those elements of like say nerd culture. So I think it's done good in that respect. Whether you enjoy it or not is different, obviously, but I need to come up further down with that then. What I'll do is I'm going to do some like, not really laces, but I'm going to do some like ridges across the toes. Do you know, I actually thought I'd done the duplicate on that, the mirror on it, but clearly not. Oh, no I have. I've just hidden one half of it. Let's do let's just what will that not let me do? Oh, back face masks on. So you can't do dynamic tessellation and back face mask at the same time with ZBrush. Like that, should knock it back a bit without that dynamic oscillation. Oh, my music's dead. What's happened? Oh, there we go. Oh, another little random thing. I realised because I use Streamlabs for my something we were looking at it the other day. I was trying to figure out why it wasn't working and everything else. I ended up looking into it a little bit more, and I realised actually you get a load of freebies which I didn't know existed. So I've just had I've had a rucksack, a hoodie, and a t-shirt rock up in the last couple of days. All freebies. Which was rather nice of them, I thought. It's just kind of like a big rucksack with some funky kind of like the Twitch logo, the Streamlabs logo, smiley face type thing. The one that's a bit like the Android head. It's kind of got that, you know, like if I show you here, up in the top corner. Jeez, what I've done. Up in the top corner here, we've got the Streamlabs logo there. Just imagine that just all over the place. Just that really. Hasn't really got any like pockets or anything inside. It's got like a one main chamber with like a divider in it, and then on the inside it's got the bit that leans against your back is quite padded, and there's like a little, you know, like the hidden pocket kind of thing to stick your wallet and whatever in. Got one of them on it, which is a nice little feature. But yeah, there's nothing. There's nothing groundbreaking about it. It's not a bad backpack. It's quite big. You can get a load of swag in there. So. This is where one of these features that you don't think you're going to use very often comes in really handy. So you've got a transparency setting on ZBrush, where a button where you can press it where everything becomes transparent. You can kind of see where your stuff is in relation to the other things, but you can't work through it. You've got a ghost mode though. Ghost mode basically allows you to sculpt through other things. So like here, where I've got these pockets sat on the surface of the armour, I want to like mask a strap off in the middle. The best way for me to do the strap is here. So I can still come in and clean it up a little bit more when I can see what's going on properly. Too big. Go. I'm gonna have to break it there, guys. I'm gonna have to stop the stream and wrap it up for the day. So I've got a few things I need to do off stream with some marketing promo bits and bobs, and I think I made pretty decent progress with that. Hopefully Joe will be happy with it, and I think next time round I'll do backpack and weapons, and we'll be able to kind of get moving on to getting these guys posed up. Oh, right. Right guys, I'm not going to do a raid out today. So I'll let you guys get on with your afternoon, and or shall we? Let me see who's on, see if anyone wants to raid. Yeah, let's go drop you in on Winter's Tales. No, actually, let's drop you on Alchemist. See if he's doing, if he's painting some of my stuff again. Right then guys, thank you all for joining me again today. Just getting ready to go and raid Alki. Be sure to... oh, he's painting the Orc Barbarian. So let's go and drop in and say hello. So guys, thank you all again. And I'll be back tomorrow with a little stream for Mike Moans doing his female beholder. So come join me and we'll check it out. In the meantime, guys, thanks again, and I'll see you later. Later, taters.